All right, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in and for joining myself and PJ Damico live. Jeff couldn't make it tonight, but we got another special guest who will be joining us shortly. And I'll let her do her own introduction. But we're going to be covering this topic tonight of deconstructing whiteness in America. A lot of you may be asking, okay, what does all of that mean? What does that entail? And I've put some questions up. We got a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, we got it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
What was I saying? We've got a lot of questions, a lot of questions, and a lot of white people wanted to know, okay, after watching our last video on discrimination, what can they do to provide solutions? How can they work with Black people to find ways in which we could come together to better understand the dynamic that myself and other Black people deal with on a daily basis? So without further ado, I'm going to let PJ take over in a few minutes and give you his introduction for those of you who didn't watch our discussion last week. But before we get started, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments area. Make sure you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and because I'll be creating more valuable content in the weeks to come. And also, if you want to join the discussion, please, if you're on Facebook, send me a message and I'll send you a direct link. And that way we can get you in on the conversation to ask myself or PJ any direct questions. So PJ, go ahead, give them an introduction as to who you are, a little bit of background on the things that you've been doing to advocate for change.
Great. Thanks, Jay. I'm watching as I talk the CNN and all of the news that is saturating us every day, as we're seeing, basically I think what's happening is it's not that Black men have not been lynched before, it's just that they're being filmed.
Yeah.
And as a result, the nation is forced to look at its dirty little secret, which is, in some respects, it's legally okay to murder Black men and Black women,
yeah,
and Native American women. And so I find it promising that we're in a crisis where suddenly people who look like me, people who are white, are waking up to the illusion that America is a place where freedom reigns, and that in fact we're, as James Baldwin describes it, a moral monstrosity, and that we have never been the America that we purport to be. We have the president in the last 2 days has literally made it clear that getting on a knee is unpatriotic, but standing on a Black man's neck apparently isn't.
Yeah.
And so as a white person, we're paralyzed in a sense because we haven't really done the work of facing our own complicity in this this constant perpetual process of racism that has paralyzed this nation. There's a quote that I like, that if you don't understand how racism works in America, then anything you think you understand will only confuse you. So my background is I grew up in a milquetoast, lily white suburb. There was nothing special about it. My experience until I was 18 was that I thought that my parents were colorblind, and they were good liberals, and they quote liked Black people and I suppose gay people, but apparently they must have liked it better when they weren't not around, because they weren't around. We lived in a suburb that was all white. And when I went to school, for some reason, even then, I befriended particularly the black boys in my school. But it was also true at that point that they were tokens in our school. I went to Catholic school where there's, 5% of the are set aside for African American or children of color. And so in my case, by the grace of God and the grace of some strong black men, by the way, is I went to school at Morehouse for a semester. And so Morehouse, which is a historically black college. And, I came with this, like, we shall overcome kind of worldview. And the brothers from the house, a lot of them Q dogs, and they were like, the revolution will not be televised. And so I kind of had a collision between my, like, let's all get along reality and the reality that those men were facing. It was 91. And then, of course, 92 came Rodney King, and, all hell broke loose. And I had the fortune and misfortune of being on the AU campus the day that popped off. And so I was in the middle of what was truly a volatile situation. But in the arc of my life since then, I moved into a Summerhill, which is a black neighborhood. Used to be black, gentrified now.
Which we're going to talk about tonight.
Sure. And with my own eyes, I witnessed 5 and 6 black boys be slain. I haven't even thought about the number of girls that I knew. And so I realized that there was a wholesale genocide of black boys, that black boys were disposable. No one, so it's funny, I ask people sometimes, when was the last mass murder in the US? And typically they only think about white murder, but people don't realize that more black children have died in Chicago than all of the military that died in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so in my case, my whiteness was disrupted by my human connection and intimacy with children who were black. I say they weren't black children. They were children who were black. And that's a phenomenal distinction. And so at this point in my life, I think I've been described as a race traitor, in the sense that my loyalty is to my humanity, not my whiteness. And if you ask me, I think whiteness is a pathology. It is dangerous. It is designed to keep suppression and oppression hidden and intact. And so my goal in life is to obliterate whiteness so that my daughters, who are 12, don't have to inherit the legacy of shame and paralyzation that keep white people from being their best selves. So that's me. It is great to be here. And thanks for you for, having the space to have this conversation.
You're welcome. And for those who may not know me, I grew up in Miami, Florida. So I saw diversity from the eyes of different Spanish cultures, Haitian, Jamaican, Puerto Rican. We were all in somewhat of a melting pot. So I didn't see discrimination bluntly. I grew up loving all races, loving all people, because I didn't see division. It wasn't until I went to college in St. Louis that I saw blatantly black and white, and how, systematically things were not the same for brown and black as they were for white people. So we would always hear about it in school. We would read the books. But to be honest, school doesn't teach black and brown people about black and brown history. We don't have opportunities to learn about, we learn about MLK, Harriet Tubman, but we don't learn about the Andrew Youngs. We don't learn about the Hosea Williams. We don't learn about those individuals. So for myself, it has really been this whole movement in itself has not only been eye-opening, it has been revealing a lot of the things that I have faced over the years with being a Black woman in corporate America and not being given the same opportunities as my white counterparts, even in my industry that I work in, just seeing that there are not a lot of Black people in management positions or in positions of what we would call power. So there has been a lot of division, but also recognizing that this is systemic and systematic. You know, even back to the Constitution, there are laws in there which prevent Black people from owning anything, from having anything, from economically being able to come up and to have the same privilege and the same opportunities that white people have. So the whole thing around George Floyd, I think for a lot of people has just been eye-opening, but it is like the young lady said in that viral video, enough is enough. Like, we need to address not just the police brutality and the police culture, but also the systematic and systemic things that are going on. And like you're saying tonight, deconstructing the whiteness, taking a look at the prison systems, which we're going to talk about next. And Delon, our special guest, just joined. But as Black people, we tired of having this conversation. We tired of, you know, when these instances come up, always having to explain our side and how we feel. Because every time we have this conversation and we talk about how we feel, it's reliving the trauma, it's reliving the same issues that continue to occur. So I want to ask you, you know, PJ, as a Caucasian person and seeing it from different eyes and from a different scope, and even though you are not of a lot of the Caucasian people who have a racist mindset or a racist agenda, how do you see everything that's going on in society? And what, I guess I'm gonna ask you now, like, what do you see needs to change with regards to Caucasian people? What do you think they need to latch on and do?
Yeah. I think I heard that, actually, I was listening once, I was at Spelman, and I heard Desmond Tutu say that white people need Black people to recover their humanity. And what is clear to me is that the stain and the shame of slavery and lynching and Jim Crow and the murders has never, ever been reconciled, and there has never been reparations.
Yeah.
And so we live in a country that has given reparations to other people who have experienced depression. But there's an existential problem, which is that on a certain psychic level, white people can't actually afford to take responsibility for oppression because they would be paralyzed and might even commit, you know, race suicide, because the deep existential evil that not only white people have caused in the past, but continue to benefit from. You know, that's the rub. Like, anytime a white person says, "Oh, my parents didn't own slaves," well, you know, that might be true, but you are drinking Starbucks coffee. And by the way, those Black people in Ethiopia that are making $1 an hour, or excuse me, $1 a day, may as well be enslaved as well. And so white people want to have all the happy reconciliation and the kumbaya without paying the cost or doing the work or standing in the arena. And I want to take a minute to deconstruct what whiteness is. Okay. Okay. So whiteness isn't a culture. So when you call me Caucasian, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I was talking to my partner, who's Taiwanese, and you know, if I said she's Asian, right, everyone would kind of like give that a pass, and then I would say, well, what's your cultural background? She or you know, might say, well, I'm Taiwanese, blah blah blah. Well, when you ask me, what's my, you know, who am I? I'm just white. Well, that's not really what my background is that, you know, 2 generations ago, the people that I come from came here to escape their own oppression as the Irish, as the Italians, et cetera, et cetera. And so the thing about whiteness is it has stripped us as white people from our own relationship to our human struggle. So all white people do is oppress. That's all we do. Whiteness is, by definition, the unearned privilege of a group of power to hold power over other people at their expense. But here are the dynamics that make it really hard to kind of to unlodge. The one is that it's benign, right? You can't see it. It's whiteness is beautiful. Everybody wants to look white. You go ahead.
Pure, like
pure. Even Spelman, the paper bag test at Spelman. The lighter skin you are, the more accepted you are in the dominant culture. That's in every society. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is that white people don't have to do shit. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to examine our lives at all. Mm-hmm. It's another day in paradise for us. Mm-hmm. We watch the commercials. We're supposed to go on vacation. We're supposed to have the Lexus or the Outback. And, as long as we listen to the dominant culture, we have no accountability or responsibility for the true experience of other people in our country. Mm-hmm. I think the other is that we have a possessive entitlement. Mm. So by possessive means, so when we're using that term Karen, so when that Karen is at the pool and she hears these children and they're giving her a hard time, she feels like she's entitled to her white space. Mm. That she's literally like she was born with a privilege to expect things to be in favor to her benefit. I had in the neighborhood, I live with my mom at the moment in a very white neighborhood, and this white Jewish old man had signs in Spanish that was like "keep off," and he had translated them into Spanish. Mm-hmm. So that he didn't have to have a conversation with the brown men that were mowing his yard. He just had to put yard signs up. At least he put them in Spanish. And so that's it. The other one is it's I already said that it's invisible. The other is that it's pathological. Mm. When my daughters were born into the world, they were not born racist, but by the time they were 4 or 5 or 6, they already began to receive preferential treatment different from the other children in their school, but they didn't know. Yeah. And so what happens is that it creates a pathology in which we don't even know that this is happening. And then the last thing, and this is what's happening now, is it's paralyzing. Yeah. And so when white people are now all of a sudden shocked and upset and they want to talk to you and they want to cry with you. Well, where have you been? And more than that, your shame is not useful right now. Yeah. Like your emotional trauma is not even remotely as significant as the trauma of losing your children or being a Black man. So please don't combine your trauma or your privilege with your emotional experience now. And so that's what happens. And I think for me, the last thing I would say, it's our job, for the white people that are watching this now, we have to take care of ourselves. It's okay to be upset when you see a human being being murdered on the television. But the question is, what are we as white people going to do among our own community to get this shit right so that we come correct as true allies with people of color instead of in a sense, being voyeurs of your misery.
And you brought up some good points, and thank you for sharing it. And I want to touch on this ally versus friends later, but let me bring Jalon in to get her feedback on everything that we've been talking about. Hey, Jalon.
Hey, hello. What's up? How we doing?
Hi, Jalon.
Can you
PJ.
hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, PJ.
How are you?
What's up, Jay?
Hey.
Good. I have been listening in, and it's funny that you addressed PJ. I'll just jump right into it. It's funny that you addressed what the white community should do, because that's the biggest thing with us as a whole. the help that we're getting right now is not constructive help. And I really truly believe that the help hasn't been constructive because as a collective on both sides, we really haven't examined the why is this happening and also the root of what's happening. And you saying that you all needing to get to know yourselves, who you are, where you come from, why is this going on is very important. Because anytime you jump into something and you don't really understand what's going on, it makes it hard for you to give a constructive helping hand. And you made this point earlier about Black men being disposable, how they appear to be disposable. And one thing I do know, and this just comes from working in the health field, that's the biggest place where I draw a lot of and see a lot of the racism happening within the medical apartheid, which I'm sure a lot of us know about in the medical industry. But the value of Black people is what's driving what is happening. Understanding why continuously we're being oppressed, and it's purely for economics. It's not even just about ego, it's not just about how people feel, but it's solely about economics. Even the facade that slavery was abolished is for economics, because slavery was never abolished. It's still something that continues. So we're trying to fix the problem that's never been solved. We're kind of brushing it under the rug, and that's in how we teach our kids in school. The history lessons are so biased. It kind of just seems like some pilgrims came and everybody kumbaya and held hands, and that's how we continued on. So the miseducation of everyone is the biggest problem. The oppression for minorities or melanated people, because even to the term Black and African American, those are other psychological areas that are being perpetuated among our community so that we never get in touch with who we are. So it's so important of what you said by us getting to know ourselves. When the biggest way that, and I have friends in Australia, they're asking the same question: what can we do to help? How can we help? And my biggest thing is get to know where you come from. So understand who you come from and what was done. I always recommend books like The Destruction of the Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. That's a really good read. And that will help you systematically see in areas of food, health, economics, even to the psychological way that we're treated. I'm a darker tone, like you all talked about, melanated woman. So there's even more hoops for me being darker skinned than the rest of my people. So then we have this insertion of another group within our own community because we do it to one another. So someone lighter tone than me, they can be oppressive towards me because of the darkness of my skin. But all of that root comes from those who are continuously oppressing us. I say to my white friends, listen, if you're not able or if you're not willing to give up resources, land, and your position, then you're not really truly willing to help. So the best thing you can do is to help yourself. Even if you're not a reader, a good DVD, if you all are ready to watch it, is it'll come to me in a moment. But it's Hidden Colors. Hidden Colors volumes 1-5 really breaks down the psychological and the spiritual things that are being done to us. Letters from Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch, if you read that book may be like 20 pages. It is the Willie Lynch letter. That was written in the 1800s. Willie Lynch very, very strategically explained how he was going to influence our people. He gave a projection of 400 years. Now, if you read that book and then you look at what we are today as a people, you will see exactly what he was trying to do. So understanding that the state that we're in as melanated people was strategically and systematically done, I think that's where the people in my life that are not melanated get confused. They're thinking, oh, it's over. It was just slavery. It's over. No. Our lives are inserted into spiritually. Even the way we eat, all of that is destructive to us as a people, even down to classifying us as races. Humans are like birds, okay? You have different species of that same field of birds. You have all these different types of species, but they're all birds. It's the same thing with us as humans, that we're all humans, but there's different species. Even to the way you eat, it's different. There's a difference in what I should eat and what you should eat. It's just understanding that there's differences, but there's nothing wrong with those differences. But the biggest thing is understanding who you are. And I think a lot of us, and it's not even just white people, melanated people, we don't even know who we are. We really don't even know who we are. We see people who look like us, and we've been taught not to trust one another. So it's really hard for us to have others inserting themselves into our group when we can't even really get it together. You see what I'm saying? So it's so important for us to go get to know ourselves, who we are, where we come from, and what our people are doing. And back to the Willie Lynch letters. He gave a great example. You can look at how, I'll give you a great example of a system, the welfare system, Section 8. You can't have a man in the home if you're receiving Section 8. That is an insertion and a way to pull apart the Black family. The feminist group, hey, if you're a feminist, go for it. But for a melanated woman, being a feminist doesn't make sense, because when we were sprayed in the streets, when dogs were sick at us, when we were sitting in the back of the buses, when our houses were burnt, we were with our Black men. No one was separate. So it was no need for feminism. We weren't being oppressed. We as a family were being oppressed. So things like that we're not really looking at is breaking us apart. Look at Hollywood. Even look at the way men will portray themselves as women when they do the dress up. It's always a stereotype towards a Black woman, like a negative stereotype. So no matter where we go in society, is what people have to understand, we're always attacked. You can't flip on the TV. You can't open a magazine. You can't look at a billboard. It's always something. And when you start to wake up and realize it, you literally realize that this is freaking everywhere. It's freaking everywhere. So if people don't understand what their side is doing, we can't fix it. So Letters from Willie Lynch is good. When I say Hidden Colors volumes 1 through 5, white, Black, Arab, everyone should watch it. And we should hold accountabilities in all of our areas. White people should hold their accountability, but as a melanated woman, we should hold our accountability too, which is understanding who we are and understanding what we need to do. But the help we need from you all is to do what you said. Get to know who you are, get to know who your people were, and understand what they did, and understand, just like our ancestors flow through us, you all's ancestors flow through you. And sometimes we do things unknowingly. I've had friends who, I had a run-in with a friend a couple years ago, and it was a very uncomfortable situation. She's a white girl, and she said something very offensive and racist that she didn't think was racist, but she said she didn't even know she had it in her. But if she knew who she was, she would understand that, and she'd know how to address it before we even got to that situation. So get to know who you are. If you're not a reader, watch a DVD. There's really no excuse. You can actually listen to the Willie Lynch letters on YouTube. You know, so there's audiobooks and there's ways to get the information so you understand, okay, if I'm helping them, how is it going to move us to the next level? We have Sean King. He gives all kinds of news about us, but what solutions are you giving us? It's just creating more trauma. Every time we see ourselves killed, we're traumatized. It's beyond depression. It's something that is embedded in our DNA. It's something that has went from anger and sadness to rage. So it needs to be addressed, because at this point, we just want to be heard. We're not looking for revenge at this point, and we don't want it to get to that point.
All right, Lonnie, you said a lot. PJ,
I can't hear you.
Oh, I said you said a lot.
I can't hear you, Jay.
Oh, me?
Oh, Jay, I don't know if she's talking.
She was. I can hear her. You can't?
No, let's see what's happening. Why I can't hear her.
Jay, talk to if she...
Yeah, so Lonnie, you said a lot.
So it may be me.
But you can hear me?
Yeah, I can definitely hear you.
Okay. All right.
PJ, respond to that.
I can hear her.
Respond to that. Well, let the people say amen.
Amen.
And I have a question too. Once you
don't want to fight.
Once you have to respond,
we just want to be left alone.
Yeah,
it's like quit inserting yourselves. Just let us, let us be ourselves. Let us thrive. Let us have our Black Wall Street. Don't come bomb it. Ask us how we moved up so quickly. Don't bomb it. Don't tear it down. Don't kill our kids. We really just want to be left alone. Pay us back and leave us alone. I mean, you know.
So I've been asked to respond to you, not to say that I can, but I'll try to say a few things. So the burden that white people actually carry is that we are not fully human to the degree that we are conditioned to oppress. And so our very humanity has been stripped out of us. Yeah. And it has been through the vicarious proximity to other people's suffering that we have a way of figuring out how to have empathy. And I think, you know, the first problem
that's good
is that we start with sympathy, right? And so all of a sudden, you know, everyone calls their first and only Black friend to see how they're doing. Right. And so, you know, who feels it knows it. Until white people can finally and fundamentally experience the suffering that others are going through, nothing's going to change. One of the things that I think was really important to notice was 5 years ago when the women's movement had their epic turnout during the Me Too Pink Hat Day, is that how quickly white women co-opted women's movements. And that, you know, Alice Walker said that feminist is to womanist as purple is to lavender, that Black women have been holding the water and carrying the water for forever. We're kind of in a really interesting moment where, you know, and I'm going to say this, it's going to sound ridiculous, but I'm kind of glad that the president shot at white people. And it's not that I want white people to get hurt, but finally the state is shooting at us, which means all of a sudden we're also in a situation where, like, finally, whiteness doesn't even work for us anymore. And so the quandary that we're in now is there's going to be this huge, massive emergence of white people wanting to get down with the movement and having no history. They'll have no back history. They won't know what struggle looks like. They won't know what community organizing looks like. The only thing they're going to know is how to be in charge. And so they're going to, like we're going to constantly, it's like a virus. We're constantly going to want to get out in front and get out in front and get out in front. And so to what you said earlier, I think people of color, and I think it's important to realize that Black people cannot, that we have to expand beyond the Black-white binary, is that communities that are facing oppression need to realize that solidarity is the only way forward, but that Black people have the deepest reservoir of resistance in this country, perhaps second to along with Native Americans. But we all have to figure out is, because the white community is still more than half of our country, what do we do with us? Like how do we manage that constituency? And then the last thing I would just say is Audre Lorde, who said that you can't deconstruct the master's home using the master's tools. And I think, again, we're in a moment where the consumer culture that we all are immersed in competes for our humanity. And so we're all getting sort of into oppression in a sense. And so how do we find our way back? And I think, quite frankly, it's the Black community who has always, been the way back into our humanity. Is that me who's going chick, 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 chick?
I'm wondering if it's me. I don't know what's going on with this phone. I may have to jump out and jump back in.
I think it's a little better.
I think it went. It's. Maybe I'm picking up feedback. I could jump in and jump out though.
Let me see who if it's you. Yeah, it's Lonnie. It's her. But I wanted to, let me see. Yeah, I think it's you, Lonnie. It's you.
Do you have headphones?
I'm gonna hop out and
yeah.
No, oh, I can plug in some headphones.
Yeah. And while she does that, I wanted to touch on something that she said, because she brought up a good point that it's tough for us, well, tough for you, for white people to see the fact that we have these issues, and we as Black people go through this when we damage our own communities. We don't even treat each other with respect, and we have issues with being able to just unify as one cohesive unit. So oftentimes when people of another race see that and see that breakdown, it's almost like an opportunity for them to come in and say, well, they're not together, they're not a unified front anyway, so we can come in and impose our will or impose our rules and impose our regulations, because they don't even stand together, as one unit. So it has a lot to do, as Lonnie said. She touched on so much, but it's the systemic views that have been portrayed not only by society but just in history. And I was also making some notes to some things that she said, and the humanity part, and the fact that in the healthcare system, and we see it time and time again with the reoccurring issues. Moving forward for us, it has to happen. It has to happen in, I don't know how much time, but over time. We have to work to break all of the systematic things that have been placed on us for so many years. So, I mean, I have Stamped from the Beginning. I'm going to start reading this, and a lot of his books are sold out. So I'm going to be doing, as a Black person, doing my taking the time to really educate myself and learn more, because there's so many layers to this that we all, I'm not going to say we don't, a lot of us don't understand, which is true, but there's a lot of layers that that we can't change. So how can we move forward? And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out, and educating people on the trauma, and really just, I don't think people will ever feel it or be able to, a lot of people will not be able to relate to it, but just being able to say, I get it. And I'm here, so, and it's a hard pill to swallow, because it continues to occur.
A friend of mine, Jeffrey Nicholson, he was the director of a Black theater, and he said that Jackie Robinson was the worst thing that ever happened to the Black community, because he pushed the Black community into assimilation, and as a result, the cohesion within the community fell apart. But I also think, and so things that we have to come to terms with is, one good thing is that within our lifetimes, we are going to be the minority. Before the three of us are dead, my daughters will not be the minority. The second thing is, my daughter's children will live in a biracial America. In 40 years from now, we are no longer going to be in this reality. And so part of it is that we have to look backwards, and we cannot, the past isn't even past, right? So we're seeing that the lynchings, the 4,700 men that were lynched in the, all the way up to the 50s, now here we are again. But if we don't realize that the past is only going to repeat itself if that's all we look at. And so we have to look towards a future in which we're going to be deconstructing the oppression. My daughters can date your sons and be safe in this country relatively. We wouldn't even be able to have this conversation 50 years ago And so even though we're going to be like hypercritical of the reconciled racism, which is, by the way, now even on steroids with this diabolical president, but we can't also realize that we've gained some measure of connection. But then now we have to figure out how do I stay in my lane? Like, what's my lane? Y'all tell me what my lane is. What do you need from me? What's the memo? How do I show up? Blah, 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 blah. Because here's the other thing, and then I'll stop. I've done all of the equity diversity trainings you could possibly imagine forever. All of those diversity trainings are designed to keep oppression in place. So if you ever go to those diversity trainings, the white woman usually cries, the white man gets upset, there's microaggressions towards the people of color. They make some commitment that they're going to hire more people of color, and then shit goes right back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in those spaces that if we build alliances with white people who get it, then they're the ones that can throw themselves under the bus. It is white people that should be in the front of these damn marches, getting sprayed and so forth. And so I think that's if we serve any role, it's to be at the service to you now, is to subvert oppression.
And how can white people get it when it's taught and is passed down generation to generation?
It is. But statistics, even the statistics are skewed. I think I said a point earlier about how spiritually and psychologically we are oppressed through words and titles. Even the title minority, understanding statistics that actually we aren't the minority. Now we're being killed to the point where we're becoming a minority, but it's more of us than everyone else. If that wasn't true economically, Black people make up like over almost 50% of the consumer market. So we are such an asset in that space, and it's so many of us because we reproduce. We just reproduce very quickly. So we're not even the minority, but the minority is running the whole entire world. I think the Rockefellers, they may not own. It may be 2 countries that they don't own, but everything else they own, bank-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that, yes, it is more of us than everyone else, which is why it's becoming a biracial world. Because anybody that is going to have a child with anyone from my people, that child is now, if I'm your mother, you're now a Black child. Yep. No matter if your dad is from Ireland, whether your dad's from New Zealand, you're now a Black child. So the statistics is where we need to start. The numbers are suppressed in so many ways, even to land, and even the wordings through the Constitution. No one takes a look at the Constitution. If they did, we'd know that Black people, and by constitutional meaning, is dead.
Yeah.
See, we need to understand that police brutality isn't even the proper word for what's happening. It's domestic terrorism. We're going after even the wrong terms when we're trying to reconcile with our families. This is actual domestic terrorism. We are being terrorized. We're not even human. So it pains me sometimes, which I think voting is important, okay? But when we're screaming it out and vote, but we're only still in the Constitution considered 3/5 human. We have never been excused from that. It has only been emancipated. And if anyone knows what emancipation is, it's basically saying, hey, I don't live in my parents' house anymore, but I still have to follow their rules over here. So you're not really free. It's just been emancipated. And that really was for economic reasons. So the reasons that we're being excused for certain things is economic, but we're still last in line. But so we're the laborers. That's the problem, is that we're not even seeing the truth behind what's going on. There's so many mistruths. I just went back and forth with someone over even just the medical oath, how, they take that Hippocratic oath, and there's this nurse, I'll get her name, it's a white lady, she's speaking out, even in that regard, like, hey, this is not where we learned our medical, everything that we learned came from Emotep. No one talks about the contributions that we have made. If you notice, we get 1 month, which is crazy because in my mind, my grandpa used to say with white people, he would always say, you all created the patent office, because how is it that you would invent anything when we was doing all the work? Yeah. We were trying to make our job easier. That's where those inventions come from. So understanding the true history and not history from a biased point of view. I have a friend in North Carolina, and now she has biracial nephews. So it's kind of opened her dad's eyes. So she said he was like a flaming racist and he had to reevaluate. He said something very funny. He told his daughters, don't bring any children that aren't blonde hair and blue-eyed to my house. Well, her sister had 3 biracial boys, and guess what? They have blonde hair and blue eyes. So now, Grandpa, it's time for you to get to know what's going on. So when you have to step into that space where you're forced to learn what's going on, then you can see the truth behind the history. And she called me and told me, she said, hey, Jawan, these history books are real creepy because they've kind of just omitted anything that's ever happened to you all. So it's the institutions that are teaching us. They teach Black children that they started as slaves, and that's so not true. Yeah. That's not where we started. But psychologically, if this is how you are training these children to think, they're going to forever be submissive to you. Yeah. We're taught that, and it was so important back during those slavery times where the Black woman was so valuable because she was to carry out all of those things that Willie Lynch wanted to be carried out. Now, if you look around, those things have come to pass. Our roles are confused. Our roles are reversed. We are all over the place, and everyone can see that. Yeah. So we're not even looking to each other to solve the problem. We've been inserted on so much that we're looking to those who created the problem to solve the problem.
Yeah. And let me bring Jeffrey in because he joined. So Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Glad to come on as well. And I know you've been in the background listening. Do you have anything you want to add?
I like it. I like your background. I like your background. I got my Juneteenth pictures up here. See, I like your background.
Thank you. Thank you. I like your background.
Shout out to my Auntie Barbara for those.
So, hey, thank you for having me and thank you for adding me. This is exciting. This is a discussion. Boy, this is the hot topic these days. Boy, people are, I don't know, white folks is calling me. I'm like, oh man, from middle school, white people is calling me from middle school. I'm like, am I the only Black person you know? Like, please stop calling me. So this is a tough time, and this is a really important time in our history. I feel like this is a turning point. I feel like 2012, like the Mayans said, 2012 was the end, and we just now catching up to it. It's like we just now feeling the effect, and the old world is hanging on for dear life for it's holding on to its last leg, its last little bit of energy, and a new world is coming. I mean, the age of the divine feminine, is coming 2020, being wisdom cipher. The wisdom is symbolic of the woman. So woman power and femininity is showing itself and making itself is present. And the white supremacist patriarchal structure that has held this old world together really had a 2020 really kind of just shine the light on everything that was wrong about what we're dealing with. So I just feel like all of this is connected, all of the energy that we're having, all the conversations we're having. COVID-19 revealed, who the essential workers were. It revealed who the business owners and homeowners were, and the threat of things, all falling apart. And I think we haven't really felt the brunt of it yet. I think it's about to get a lot worse before it gets better. So I just want us to, brace ourselves, because we are in the middle of a transformation. The pain is inevitable, but so is the renewal. The renewal is inevitable, and we got to hang on to that renewal.
Mm-hmm. And I had a question for you, Lonnie, and something I had asked PJ before you got disconnected before. You had mentioned that, we as Black people, we have issues with racism within our own culture. And we deal with our own issues of oppressing each other. So what needs to change? And I'll ask Jeffrey the same thing, and PJ, you can comment as well. But what do you think needs to change for Black people so that we can change our narrative, so that society and the things that continue to occur, not to say that they won't stop, but people won't feel like they have a free pass because we oppress each other?
I'm glad you brought that up. I always, growing up, have always ended up being the one dark-skinned friend out of everyone. It's always been like everybody and then the chocolate right there, just always. And so it's given me a front seat to see the denial that some of my friends live in, especially when the light skin versus dark skin, and it's like a versus in our culture comes into play, and we've been pinned against one another. That's why I always go back to reading those letters from Willie Lynch are so important, because reading those letters helps you to understand constructively what has been put in front of us and what has been done to us. Mm-hmm. And it really is just the survival of the fittest. Lighter skinned people used to be able to pass as white. I can say on my father's side, he's 2 generations back, is a white man. He married my great-great-grandmother. And that's the thing, we don't understand, that we all mixed up, really, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But not seeing that the difference in my grandpa's side of the family, they're very fair women. They might even almost be more lighter than some white people. That's how light they are. And they would tell me how that they would pass for white so that they can get better privileges, get loans for banks, be able to get ahead in life. When my grandfather died, my grandma went through with his death certificate, and they put white on his death certificate, my grandfather, and she had an issue making claim to his estate. So it's even that psychological part. They make us hate one another. Well, you're too light, you're not Black enough. You too Black and you ugly. Like, all of those stereotypes are perpetuated through media, really through media and music. Because if you look at music, me being a former musician, now I'm in the health field, but even being in that, the music pushes it. Everything we see, we're programmed that way. That's how we've been done for centuries. Willie Lynch said, take one good drop of white blood and mix it with Black and continue to do it over the years, and you'll have a whole entire different race of people. He gave you the science of why we do this to one another. So I think it's a lot of self-hate within our community that pushes this. Self-hate, whether it be a lighter tone woman who wants to be darker so she can feel like she belongs to being called a Black woman, and then a Black woman seeing that being lighter may get her more privileges, or she considered the object of beauty, because even in the movies, the lighter tone woman is the object of affection and beauty. And usually the darker woman is the whore, or she's like the friend of the fly girls. Like little stuff like that we see that we think is small is what's feeding into it. So we got to stay out of the denial, see that it's happening. And I think we need dialogue amongst ourselves to get through that. We need healing within our own community. And PJ even mentioned that earlier. We've never been reconciled. I'm just an angry Black woman when I'm upset. Yeah. People don't think I have feelings. I don't cry. I don't hurt. I don't worry. I don't go outside. I don't see a cop pass me in the car and my heart literally drops to my stomach. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't pull me over. Please don't pull me over. Yeah. Like the minute I get pulled over, I start praying. It shouldn't be like that. I get upset. I get afraid. We got to stop ignoring the problem that's happening amongst ourselves, and then we can address, everything else.
Jeffrey, you want to add to that?
Jeffrey.
Yeah, absolutely. That was beautiful. I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's Wesley Muhammad who coined the phrase, all Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
And when we see discrepancy, like one of the biggest topics that I see on social media among Black groups, Pan-Africanist groups and such like that is, can you date interracially and still be pro-Black?
Yeah.
And I feel like the question itself really poses another question on top of that. Can you be pro-Black and judge other people by however they behave?
Yeah.
You disagree with your brother and sister because they are in an interracial relationship, but that doesn't make them not Black. You disagree with your brother or sister because they are lesbian or gay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop them from being Black.
Yes.
You hate the gangbanger.
Yeah.
You're woke. You're woke, so you hate the gangbanger. But he's still Black. You're woke, but you hate the Black woman who wears a weave or a wig. You hate her, but you're pro-Black, but you're woke. You're woke. So what woke has created is an elitist groupthink to separate this other group that claims that they've done all the work from the rest of the Black people. You make a distinction from yourself and say, oh, I'm not one. You have just said the cliche, I'm not one of those niggas. I'm a Black man. I'm sophisticated African American. Remember we had on BET, there was Emerge.
Yeah.
For sophisticated African Americans. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of message is that? What the hell is a sophisticated African American?
Yeah.
What message are you sending your people? You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, pro-Black to me means all Black lives matter. It means that I love the LGBTQ brothers and sisters. I love the gangbanger. I love the interracial. I love the crackhead.
Yeah.
I love the ex-convict. I love all Black people, because this is the deal. No matter who those Black people, whatever they do in the bedroom or how they vote or whatever who they're having sex with, whatever that is, they're still 7 times more likely to be pulled over than PJ.
Yeah.
And PJ be doing the most. I mean, he be wild. He be shooting heroin while he's driving, and beating people up, and he be doing all kinds of shit. I mean, no, he don't. But
drink, do whatever.
Right, but every single one of those Black people are 7 times more likely to be pulled over by the police than PJ. So I can't dislike them because she wears a weave or because she wears contacts. I can't say, oh, well, you're not Black enough for me, so I can't support you. I can't have your back. To be pro-Black is, even if I disagree with you, your existence is resistance, and I appreciate you. And we will get through Ma'afa together. If we ain't talking like that, then what is pro-Black? Yeah. Okay, and what is our agenda? If our agenda is just not lifting people up.
Yes, another term. That's what it is.
Right.
We are all Black. You're right. I just had a conversation with the transgender friend, not last night, I think the night before, and I was up till, we were up till 5 a.m. because I've known this friend since college before the transition. Didn't hear from her, and then I ran into her in Atlanta, but she had went through a transition, and so it's no she, now it's he. And we had a conversation, and I came to understand that you're not going to understand or agree with everything someone does. And sometimes, it's okay. As long as if this person lives their life that way, don't force it on me. If I live my life this way, don't force it on you. I'm not going to beat down your door saying, understand what I'm doing. Understand my life. None of us need to do that. if we're, like you said, working to the same common goal of building us up as a people, of healing our people, I just think all of the titles and the letters and the numbers are very confusing. I like this gentleman, Sanguru. He's I don't know if you've all ever watched Sanguru. He is from India, and he says something so awesome that they do in India. They don't allow their children to, in the rural part of India, they don't allow their children to go to school until they're 12, because they want to make sure that that child understands who they are first. Because think about it. He said when he had his daughter, she would travel with him, and he would tell people, you can play with her. You'd be like, you can play with her. I love his accent. He would say, you can play with her, but don't try to teach her anything. Just play with her. That's it.
Right.
No ABC, 1, 2, 3. No, what color is this? Just play with her. Because what I do know as a child, as soon as we're born, everybody puts their ideals on what we should be, what we shouldn't be, what we should do, what we should do. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's very problematic, because you grow up and you've heard everybody else's voices except your own. So we kind of learned in reverse. I didn't learn myself until I had to unlearn everything I learned in school. And then I figured out who I was. But those ideals were put on me. So I thought, I just defended my blackness with other Black people the other day, because they were dividing us by hair, hair texture. I'm not Black because of a hair texture. Y'all, if a cop sees all of us together, guess what? Whether I'm light, dark, whatever, we look the same, okay? We look the same. So it's got to stop. It's got to stop. But the ideals, I think, I like that they wait till their children are 12 in rural India to really teach them in school. They learn the astrology. They learn things that are divinely purposed for them to learn first. And then you go and learn about life. Because I'll ask everyone on here, did you really learn how to grow your own food in school? Did they teach you how to create your own business in school? Did they teach you, in this sense now, in the pandemic, were we equipped in school on what to do when this happens, how to survive? No, they just teach you how to be slaves. And that goes for white people, Black people, gay, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So we have to watch what we take in. And I think that's the problem with Black people. We got all of these ideas about ourselves and we don't even know ourselves.
PJ,
absolutely.
You want to come in, PJ? I know you've been doing a lot of listening. We appreciate it.
I think listening is where we white people need to be right now. So, and I'm not very good at it, by the way. Jeff and I had a chance to meet with an iconic man named Vincent Harding. He was Dr. Martin Luther King's speechwriter, and we don't even know our history. But when I used to sort of get anxious with Dr. Harding, he reminded me often. He said, PJ, don't forget that we belong to each other. And not only do we belong to each other, but there is no way out without each other, dead or alive. But we do belong to each other, and there's no way that we can survive without each other. That's an existential truth. I think the second thing is that we are not finished. As Jeff was pointing out earlier, this is an epic moment in history. The next moment is unprecedented. So if we look at the civil rights movement as if it's going to repeat itself, then we will not be present for what's about to happen, because it's way different than what we've ever experienced before. I think, just to kind of put my 3 chips in for white people, what I have to say, and I borrowed this from the Black community, is is that not all skin folk are kinfolk to me, right? But that's true for you too.
Yes.
In the sense that we all have to have a level of discernment, because in my lived experience, a lot of Black people are way more white than I am in the way we behave. And so what's really important is that we begin to realize.
Mr. Biden, Mr. Biden, Mr.
Mr.
Biden.
Hold on. Here's I've had the privilege. I actually am doing work in East Africa right now, in Kenya particularly. 7,000
vote for PJ.
7,000 houses were just raised last week. Did we know that in the U.S.? Nope. When we talk about the pandemic, we're at 200,000. 16 million Africans died from HIV and AIDS. 500,000 will die next year. Mm-hmm. And so I think the other is that we need to begin to shift our gaze not only to race, but to the crisis of race as a vehicle for saving this country from itself. And by the way, it's not just it's Black women. The theory of intersectionality wasn't a theory. It was just Black women disrupting feminism and saying, look, we live at the intersection of all forms of oppression. And so if you want to learn how to deconstruct oppression, we are the ones that are going to help you understand that. But until we realize that we cannot live in our binary identities anymore, not only, but we have to sort of begin to shift out. And the last thing I think is that we need to be smoking white people out, smoking them out. Just like the folks who aren't allies, we need to put them over there so that we can actually work with the small critical mass that are. And we need to have a certain measure of discernment. My daughters and my nephew, what we're going to do this weekend is we're going to go on the corner in an all-white community where there are white pickup trucks with flags on the back of them. And we're going to hold Black Lives Matter signs. And we're going to ask people, yeah, exactly. And we're going to be present to say, which one of y'all are human and which one of y'all are not. And because we have to find a way forward, and it's not going to be without people with my skin color. It sure as hell can't be led by us, but there's a critical mass of us that, when Noah's Ark shows up, there's at least 2 or 3 of us who get to go in the Ark too.
And then to your point of that,
right.
And to your point of the whole Black Lives versus All Lives Matter, and to play devil's advocate, a lot of people who may not agree with the Black Lives Matter movement and say all lives matter may not really understand where that is coming from and why so many people are pushing that narrative. So do you guys agree with Black Lives versus All Lives Matter, or should there not be a BLM movement?
It's a satanic
All Lives
plot.
Matter's dumb.
It's a satanic plot funded by George Soros and Al
I don't agree
Sharpton.
with either. We don't do Al Sharpton over here. Sorry, Miss Sharpton, if you watch it.
Al Sharpton.
We've canceled. Sorry,
George Soros.
I don't believe in All Lives Matter and Black Lives. Like, Black Lives Matter is not our movement. Anytime you have someone who doesn't go through what we've been through, that's like a white girl trying to school me on how to deal with my hair.
Yeah.
I know you went to school for that, but like, I wake up with this hair, I have to wash it, I have to do it, you know what I'm saying? And then All Lives Matter. I see these memes on Instagram about All Lives Matter, and they have like the one house, it's a whole neighborhood. One house is on fire, so they're taking the hose to the house on fire, and then someone in the other house is like, hey, all houses matter. And so they're like, oh, okay. And then they're watering the house that's not on fire. So yes, duh, all lives do matter, but we need to be fixing the ones that have issues. Like, what is so hard about that? And then I think when we were voting, now I'm not a person who really believes my vote counts. I'm sorry. If you're telling me in the Constitution I'm not human, I find it hard to believe that you even care about my vote. But to those who do vote on a local level, get these old farts out of office, get these state attorneys, get these prosecutors. Remember, a lot of these people that are elders were the children that were watching. If anyone is familiar with the song Strange Fruit from Ella Fitzgerald. Is it Ella Fitzgerald? I hope I'm not saying it wrong.
Billie Holiday, right? Isn't it
Yeah, Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
See, everybody gonna kill me. Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for the save, PJ. But these people were actually there watching the lynching. They were the children looking at the black body swinging. And these are the people that are the judges, that are the prosecutors, you know, that are benefiting from it. But I was going to say this earlier. One thing we have to understand, and this is for white people too, understand that it is an illusion that white people are even in power. There's a force that runs and controls everybody. So I know that, you know, a lot of us like to think, I'm in power, I'm empowered. But really, it's being a pawn to what they want to happen. The race war didn't just start. It started when we were kidnapped and forced into free work, free labor. You know, we were forced into, and then the idea of what slavery was. Let's remember there were breeding farms for us. There were what was called buck breaking farms for us. You know, we were raped in front of one another. There were so many graphic things that are embedded into us that we have to know that are happening. But this happened to a lot of people. But there's a force behind all of this that we're not looking at. That's why the whole, like, you know, not to get into politics, but there's a deep state, and then there's just so many shadow governments. Do we really know who's pushing these things? Because even to the fact of some of these videos that I'm seeing on Instagram with like black and white people arguing and a black person slapping a white person, I don't even think a lot of that stuff, to be honest, is actually happening. I think that a lot of it is fabricated to egg on emotions, to make people upset, because some of it doesn't even look believable. When I'm seeing someone killed, I'm like, did they really die? Did that really happen? Or is this just another construct to make us go against one another? But now, like you said, everyone's seeing that they shooting everybody. They don't care because they've never cared. It's only one group being used to dominate another one to carry out the work of someone else that we're not seeing. It's a force. And when we understand that there's a force behind all of this, we can drop those biases that we have towards one another, because we all have them.
And someone commented,
every race has biases.
My fault, Jelana. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, go.
Someone commented, Tinsley, a Caucasian female, said, "This is so important. Smoking white people out is my current favorite hobby. It's also helped me gain greater perspective in general and help to educate those that can and want to change." So calling white people out, or calling people out in general now, is the approach that many people are taking. But is it, in my opinion, I don't think it's solving the overall problem. Right.
Well, let me say, of course it's not in isolation. So, you know, my family is upper middle class, privileged, and I'm the crazy one in the family. And so when we have gatherings, you know, in the same way that Black people have double consciousness or code switching, so do white people. And so when I'm at a dinner with white people, what'll happen is a white person will say, you know what, I'm so exhausted from this Black Lives Matter thing. Or they'll say, did you see that guy in the alley? It is the responsibility, if white people say that they are committed to the transformation of our community, then we have to smoke those people out. If we sit there and we tolerate, then we're complicit, then we may as well be the ones saying it ourselves. And so when someone says all lives matter to me, first of all, I might even say shut up, or even worse, I'll probably say shut the fuck up. Because what you don't realize is that of course your life matters, but the fact that your life matters and has always mattered at the expense of other people is the problem. And so, you know, that kind of white privilege nonsense is something that just needs to be shut down. And then if the person cries, then you get a chance to talk to them. But if they walk away, they were never there to kind of learn in the first place. And so I think that there is an urgency within the white community to divide itself among those who are trying to become more human and those that are wasted. I mean, I don't give a shit about half the white community because I can't afford to, in the same way that people of color can't afford to either. Not my project. If I have to live in the white community, at least I'm going to work on the white people that are trying to be more humane.
Jeff, anything to that?
Yeah.
I said, you want to add anything to that, Jeff? Or are you good? I'm gonna move to the next question.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't get into the banter of all lives matter or Black Lives Matter. I mean, I understand the reason why Black Lives Matter as an organization exists and why it was said. Of course, all lives matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter. The way that I would say it differently. This is how I would say it. 1865 is greater than 1776. The freedom for all is much greater than the freedom for a few. In America, we celebrate the 4th of July. We don't celebrate Juneteenth.
Yes.
White folks don't celebrate Juneteenth. They don't honor our freedom. That is why we are saying Black Lives Matter, because you don't honor our freedom. It's so inconsequential to your existence. We're not your doctor. We're not the cop that pulls you over. We're not the we're not the teacher. We're not the judge sitting there judging you. And if we are, it is under an infrastructure that is created by you that we must work within and abide by. So 1865 is the kind of freedom that we claim that we have. As a matter of fact, 1968 freedom is greater than both of them. And we claim that that's the freedom we got. They don't honor the 1968 type of freedom. They don't honor Martin's freedom. They don't honor Harriet's freedom. If they don't honor Harriet's freedom, which is the hardest freedom in this country's history, she's the hardest fool that has ever walked this country. There ain't no gangbanger alive as hard as Harriet Tubman. She ran 90 miles in 5 days. 90 miles in 5 days. And when she got there, she said, you know what? I'm going back to go get my people. There ain't I challenge any gangbanger. I don't Crips, Bloods, Hell's Angels. I don't care. None of them as hard as Harriet Tubman.
And she popped period. If you got out of line. She'll pop you
period.
Like oh, you
period.
Say that, Jeffrey.
I mean, became a spy for the Union, would sneak into the Confederate officers and pretend to be a cook and pretend to be a slave and then sneak back out. Come on, man. There ain't nobody in our history that hard. That's the mother of this nation. That's the mother of this nation, period. There's nobody, her freedom is the hardest freedom in our history. Martin's freedom, 1968, they don't honor Martin's freedom. You know what they do on his birthday? They march on the Capitol with AK-47s. They don't honor your freedom. They don't honor your freedom, okay? They don't believe in your freedom, period. And 2020 freedom is gonna be bigger than any freedom that we've ever had. That's the level of the price we about to pay come November, promise you.
You said that. I just want to piggyback real quick on something you said about Harriet Tubman with Black women. We're so exhausted. We're so exhausted. Can we just breathe? You know, Jay, do you just want to breathe?
Yes.
Because
I just want to breathe.
And you said it, they don't respect it because it's glamorized. I didn't want to go see the Harriet movie, and I don't want to see any more movies that glamorizes our struggle. That's a huge problem. And our story is being told by those who have never went through it. So Black women are continuously portrayed as, yes, the backbone, But as a woman, and I'm being blessed to have seen a great marriage with my mom and my dad, I come to learn that the Black woman isn't the backbone of the family. The man is. We're there to do our job spiritually and make sure the family is down and they're situated spiritually. But that man is our protector. Mm-hmm. And we feel so unprotected and non-existent that it's ridiculous. And I love brothers like you who acknowledge us, acknowledge our existence, acknowledge our contribution and our wisdom. It's a beautiful thing to even just see one of our brothers even acknowledge that, especially when the world continuously takes from us. Look at a great example would be Kim Kardashian. Everything that is said that's ugly on us, a big butt, big lips, weave, is painted as a picture of ugly, but on a white woman, which is the standard of beauty, she's exotic. Braids are exotic. That we've been doing that, but we're never acknowledged. And until the Black woman, and I say this is one of the reasons I became a doula, because I saw how we're treated in the medical industry and in the world, knowing that we breastfed the master's children. Okay. The wives of those slave masters did not breastfeed their children. A Black woman breastfed their children. And then a wet nurse breastfed our children, a wet nurse who went from child to child. So we're continuously being pulled from, and then everybody wants us to be calm and understand when we have no one to talk to. Even our men tell us to shut up when we say, hey, you're saying Black women are dying, but what about us? The same thing that police officers do to Black men, doctors do to us. So whatever area is in, we're being attacked. We have to look at all angles of this, but the biggest area is our psychological and spirituality. I don't think our freedom is being acknowledged because in my mind and in my heart, we're not free. So yes, I celebrate Juneteenth, but we're celebrating the freedom that we have within, because that's where it starts. Because on paper, we're not free. We're not. We don't even have our own nation, and it's perfectly legal. That's what I tell people. Look at your Constitution. The killing of Black men, children, and women is legal. It is legal because we are still considered property. And until we go do the paperwork, the work that needs to be done, we will continuously be done like this, and we will have another protest in March next summer. This will keep going on because until this system is either completely destroyed, which is the only way it's going to work, or we go address those things like, hey, you're not human, you're property, so we just emancipate you. We're still your mommy and daddy, and so we can kill you just like they did in slavery times. If your slave got out of line and you had to kill or correct them, they could claim insurance on that. You can claim insurance on that dead slave if you had to kill them because they weren't listening. We're still in this predicament. We are not out of it. And when we do create a system, and I challenge any white person who's watching, Black person to go look up Black Wall Street. Go look up the Tulsa Massacre. Go even look up Central Park and how Central Park got there. Because we had our own. It just keeps getting destroyed because we're considered property. Until we're not considered property, this is not going to change, and they're going to be able to keep killing us legally.
So Lonnie, I guess she answered. I'm going to take it off because it's doing that thing again, Lonnie. But she basically answered the question that I wanted to ask both of you, and I'm going to chime in too. Where do we go from here? We heard Lonnie say that, things have to change from a systematic standpoint for Black and brown people to get ahead. But in light of everything that's going on, in light of all the movements, where do we go from here? PJ, I guess I'll let you start with that.
There's a quote I love, is that when one society dies, the new society is brought in by just a few people who are not afraid to be totally insecure. And so I think we're at the kind of cusp of history. By the way, American history is not all that hangs in the balance. The entire globe hangs in the balance. Whiteness is also synonymous with capitalism.
Yes.
And the globe is on the verge of, not the globe, I'm sorry, human beings are in the globe, are on the verge of self-destructing. And then another, Langston Hughes, who said, "America, you've never been America to me, but I swear this oath you will be." I am actually not convicted in the American experience as much as I'm convicted in Jeff and Jay, the three of us, and my daughters. Like, that's it. Is that I got my daughters, I got my people, I got my island of sanity. I know who I am. I know what love means. And so all we can do is what we can do to bring in and to usher in the new world that Jeff was talking about. Vincent Harding used the term midwives, is that in this moment of uncertainty, we have to bring in and we have to hold space. We need to breathe to create a new way forward. And so, that's my project. I'm hell-bent on making sure that my daughters are ready to be fully human and to not swallow the pathology of whiteness that they inherited. And that if they do that well, then there's a chance for them to do that with other people. And so that's the promise that I live for.
I think that similar to what PJ said, it starts with corporate change and capitalism change and just economic change. We don't own anything. And we don't, like if he said the other night, we don't value our dollar. So if we don't own anything, but we're quick to spend, how can we ever get ahead as Black people? So it starts there, and it starts with us taking back ownership of the things that we put value in other companies and other things. A lot of people are posting things where we're seeing a movement with Black businesses being promoted, and us, putting money back into Black businesses and investing in each other. So I think it has to start there, because until we can own things and have shares of companies, we won't have a say. And we really won't be able to make a lot of change systematically that needs to be made, because we don't have the power economically to do so. So that's my 2 cents there. Jeff, anything you want to add to that?
Black economics. I mean, wow, Black investment equals Black ownership. Black ownership equals Black employment. Black employment can equal Black wealth and Black investment over, and it's a cycle, and it just cycles like that. Imagine all that money we spend, 50 million people spend a year buying toilet paper, buying toothpaste, buying just the essentials of daily life. Imagine if, that was there. So that I agree that is a phase. That is like probably phase one, the first thing that we would need to do for our transformation. But just to be able to employ ourselves is one piece, but to be able to govern ourselves, police ourselves, feed ourselves, educate ourselves, is ultimately what freedom is. To Josh's point, I mean, we have a stark resemblance to the folks. Do you remember the Kurds? It was late last year in Syria. They had fought with us side by side to eradicate ISIS, but then the Turkish government wanted to move in, and the U.S. troops pulled out. Do you remember that just happened?
Yeah.
Right. We are just like those Kurds. We are an ethnicity. We are a culture without a homeland. You see what happens with Palestinians. You see what happens with the Palestinians. And our police forces here they're being trained by Israeli safety and security forces, by the Israeli police. And that need that knee hold that Officer Chauvin was doing to George Floyd is a regular thing in Palestine by the Israeli forces. And so if you listen to the rhetoric of the Israelis about the Jews, about the Palestinians there, it is almost identical to how these Second Amendment advocates, these Trump supporter style folks, these folks, it sounds exactly how they talk about us. Okay, so this is something that, like what PJ is pointing to, this is fascism all over the world. Fascism is hot right now. It's in the hot, dude. It's back. Fascism is back, baby. It's new and improved with technology. It's back, baby. Fascism is back. So that's, what we're dealing with. And yes, there is, it is one world, and we are one people, and there is one human family. That is true. And we are interdependent. I often compare PJ and myself to the movie, 1952 movie, The Defiant Ones, with Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis. It's two prisoners handcuffed together, one black and one white, and they both escaped, and they're on the run as fugitives together, trying to escape the prison. Look at the metaphor. Look at the symbolism. That is really Black America and white America who have realized that all this carnal stuff, all the carbon stuff, all the environmental stuff, or all of the behavioral stuff is so much more insignificant than the soul. The consciousness, the soul, the vibration you're on. I don't care what your affiliation, I care about your vibration. And at the end of the day, knowing that there is that force that you said, that is, that matrix, I'm for PJ, I'm Morpheus and he's my Neo. And I'm trying to train him so that he can throw his body at the brain of the machines so that we're no longer batteries.
I'm Trinity, bro. I'm Trinity. I just want to kiss you.
Whoa, bro. Whoa.
So let me read a couple of comments. Andre said, I definitely believe we need to repair our people's knowledge of economics. Jason, we have to be willing to sacrifice and become investors over consumers. And Debbie said, taking financial control, definitely. We need to focus and discipline and see the end. So, everybody agrees that the starting economically with changes systematically there is key. But we're going to go ahead and end this tonight, but I want to end with one last question that I want you guys to fill in, or just finish this phrase, and then we'll all jump off. PJ, dear white people, please.
Oh, dear white.
No, you go last. I'm gonna let Josh start this off. Dear white people, please.
Stop forcing yourselves into our business. Just stop self-inserting. Oh, one more. Please get to know your history. Ours too.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeffrey, dear white people, please.
Dear white people, please call PJ.
Dear white people, I ain't home, my phone don't work, and leave me the fuck alone. So, and get a grip. This ain't about you. This ain't for you. but we got to figure our own shit out. And man, call me.
But don't call me. Call me, but don't call me. PJ said, call me, but don't call me. Come here. No, go away.
Dear white people, I would say, listen. Don't be so reactive, and try to be proactive, and ask before you judge. Ask what you can do, or ask how you can be of assistance. Don't just assume that your way is the best way, or that what you have been taught systematically can continue to occur. So please, if you really want to change, if you want to lock arms with us, if you want to be ride or die with us, then you got to ride or die with all of us and everything that comes with this. Because just like Erykah Badu song "Bag Lady," we got a lot of bags. And
you gonna hurt your bag.
And it's gonna take time, but just understand that it's a how Nipsey Hussle, it's a marathon. The marathon continues.
Yes, this is not a race. It's a marathon. Better listen to Harriet.
All right, y'all.
All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Josh.
you.
PJ. You guys have a good night.
All right. Peace.